It's Wednesday, 17 May, the year of our Lord 2022. We're live in the battleground. We got a lot to go through today. Had a huge day yesterday. MAGA dominant, MAGA ascendant, MSNBC complete meltdown. I got about a 5-minute cold open. I got Boris, so we're going to play that in a little while. In Pennsylvania, of course, with the great Colonel Doug Mastriano. Then we're going to go to Georgia, got Bernie Kerik down there. A lot going on in Georgia. Remember, this is 60 days of pain, but we're into 7 days of May. From the Pennsylvania primary, essentially to Georgia, we got obviously Alabama, Arkansas, a lot of stuff in between, a lot of stuff on next week, but man, it's all focused in Georgia. We're going to get to all that. Boris, I'm going to do some on the air producing. We got our great engine room, Grace in the engine room. We got Josh in the engine room feeding us information. Melvin Capital, Boris, if you can just check this out while I'm talking to Senator Alex Antic. Melvin Capital, that was involved in the great short squeeze with GameStop, I think it was, AMC and GameStop. Justin, he's one of the top shorts on. You think he would be in the best thing, Boris? If you just go check it out, where I talked to Senator Antic, he just announced he's shutting down the fund. What people have to understand on a historic market meltdown today, and Cisco's off as much, I think, as 12 to 15% aftermarket trading because of horrific earnings coming out tomorrow. And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, a big part of that's going to be tied to China. Remember, Cisco is the American company that helps with the firewall. China finally catching up with American companies in these earnings where all the Chinese numbers are lies, and they're imploding over there, and they're still on lockdown. They said Shanghai is not going to be open up until the middle of June at the earliest. Something's going on. Something's not right. But the math, remember, price is truth. Just remember that price is truth. So you're going to find out tomorrow these misses of earnings. Cisco's already down. What happens when you have this massive market drops like you've had in Tesla stock, was gone from over $1 trillion, I think, now to $700 billion. I think it's a $400 billion loss. Put that in perspective. General Motors, Ford, I think Honda and Toyota, I think you add them all up, I think the number is roughly $170 billion market cap. Let's say $200 billion, I'll round up. For the 4 biggest car companies in the world that make, I believe, of real cars, not the stuff they make in Brazil and not the stuff they make in China, real cars, I think 90% of the market. Their market caps are $200 billion. Tesla has lost 2 times or 2.5 times that since he's gotten involved in the situation in Twitter. What happens is these hedge funds that are managing your pension money, all of a sudden, when these things start to drop, you're going to start to see some of these hedge funds that are highly leveraged start to implode and blow up. And then when they start to unwind like a Melvin Capital, boom, they got to hit and blow out of all the positions to turn to cash. It's called a vicious cycle. This is when this thing really starts to spin out of control. We're going to get all into that. Boris and I got a lot to talk about, but I got to go back to Senator Alex Antic. The audience knows him, loves him. He's kind of a voice of reason down there. But Senator Antic, first off, get us up to date. You got these 2 things. You got these international health regulations, and they have some of these things that sound a little bit innocuous, but scary, how WHO is actually getting more centrality of command. And so everybody here saying no way. Then you've got a whole nother track, which is a pandemic treaty, which would have to be approved by our Senate. But that's another, even taking it another level. But let's go back to Australia, because I would argue, having been around the world so many times, is that when you go throughout the world, Canada, the Brits are great, don't get me wrong, and with this, but Canada and Australia kind of have a special relationship with the United States, in particular Australia, and kind of the outlook is as close to the American West as you get. And I think it's one of the reasons Australian movie stars do so well here. It's just kind of it's back to old America, and people were stunned and shocked about how you guys handled the pandemic. So get us up to, I remember one time you were, I think, held hostage in a hotel. Get us up to speed on that, and tell us where are you leading this fight to no more centrality of control, no more ceding our sovereignty to places like Tedros and the WHO.
Yeah, well, Steve, that's right. That was 6 months ago. We first spoke, I think, when I was locked in what we call a medi hotel here in Australia, having had no COVID and no symptoms of COVID, nothing of the sort. But that was very common in Australia in the last 18 months or so. And it does feel like since probably the early stages of 2020, Australia has taken on a slightly different feel. And I don't know whether or not everyone else is feeling that. There's a very big freedom movement growing in this country as we speak. But we went through the acute stage of the pandemic. What are we dealing with? Where's this all going? A lot of reaction to that and a lot of legislative rushing, I suppose, and we had some pretty draconian powers that were bricked into our domestic legislation. I should say all of that led by the nose by some of the stuff that we do see already from the international health regulations. So a lot of these laws that we had here were already driven by what we saw coming out of the WHO. Now in Australia, having seen all of those terrible scenes, and your viewers would be familiar with the strike-breaking scenes, the scenes of police shooting rubber bullets at people in Melbourne and other places. That's very unusual for Australia. As you say, we've had a history of being a laid-back country that doesn't do this sort of thing. They shocked Australians. A bit like in the United States now, that I think acute phase has retreated. And if you look out the window, less people are wearing masks. There's all of the queue-in, check-in codes are gone. But ironically, just yesterday, our own state parliament here in South Australia bricked in pandemic powers into one of the long-standing public health acts here to override those emergency powers that have been lent on for 2 years. So what we're actually seeing here, I think, is more insidious than it looks like. We're actually seeing the long-term bricking in of draconian COVID powers that can be switched on and off at the drop of a hat. And of course, all that takes is for a body like the World Health Organization to declare a pandemic again. Those powers come back and we're back to where we were. These are incredibly worrying times over here, Steve. I can tell you that for sure. I know they are in the United States, but we need more people to wake up over here in Australia and to understand what's going on.
Give us a quick summary. What are you doing right now? Because you're looked at as a leader in this freedom movement. What are you doing right now to fight these the United States is at the tip of the spear of pushing these at this meeting. It's going to take place starting the 23rd next week in Geneva. What are you guys doing down in Australia to stop this?
Well, look, I mean, from my point of view, I've written to our foreign minister just recently to say, look, we don't want anything to do with these international health regulations and indeed any global pandemic treaty which comes after that. The campaign, the ground campaign has begun, and we're actually in the middle of the last 3 days before our general election. So our government, the government that I represent, goes before the polls on Saturday. So look, it's a very interesting and delicate time here in Australia, but people are increasingly starting to wake up. I think one of the problems we've had here, and we've talked about this before, is that Australians are inherently laid back about things that Americans are absolutely, vibrant about, liberty and freedom. Australians tend to trust their governments more than they should. And I'm not saying they shouldn't trust this one. I'm just saying simply that the concept of giving data to governments and allowing them to incur on your freedoms as a concept is something that Australians are very comfortable with. So there's a process of getting people to understand what's coming from the top down, what's coming from these bodies like the WHO and those that pull the strings thereof. And we've got to wake up over here.
Senator Antic, how do people follow you on social media? Because I know you've become quite a big, the audience really loves when you come on and give us an update in Australia. How do people follow you?
It's very kind, Steve. Look, I'm still on Facebook as we stand, Senator Alex Antic on Facebook. I'm also on Getter, though, and you can find me there at the same handle, at Senator Antic, Alex Antic on Getter, which I'm very pleased to be part of.
Senator Antic, thank you so much for joining us and updating. Thanks so much for fighting this down there. We're fighting it up here nonstop. I want to thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be with you again.
Can we check? Is it Stop Vax Passport, not my trusted producer? We're going to put up, if not the Chiron, let's get Captain Bannon to get up Stop Vax, whatever it is, .org that you go to right now in the audience. All you do is go there. They'll have all the information. This is the one Frank Gaffney, Michelle Bachmann set up. You guys will be able to go to and send it to the stopvaxpassport.org. That is Young Master with passports. Stop Vax Passports.org. That's all one word. Go there now and check it out. We got to get on top of this. Also, the number for the United States Senate, 202-224-3121. Make sure you give them a piece of your mind about this $40 billion. Boris, you're a guy that's spent a lot of time on the street, and there's not many days like this. We started the first hour with people saying, "Oh, it's the greatest economy in the world. This economy is so wonderful." Right, Jim Cramer, and then today, horrific. Right after we started, aftermarket, Cisco announces a massive miss on numbers. That's going to be tied somehow to China, what's going on in China, because they're huge over there. And I think the stock was off as much as, 12 to 15% at one time. Tomorrow could be a bloodbath, particularly with other things coming out. This is, you had 1987, you had the 2001 correction with the you had the recession in 92, you had the 2001 correction on the internet stocks. Then you had the financial implosion of 2008, which we've really never gotten, never recovered from. And now you had, and I was mocking the soy boys and girls on the that voted for Biden, or supposedly voted for Biden, or skipping around the woke generation, about wouldn't you like to go back to the fall of 2019 and Donald J. Trump's economy? I don't care what you think of Trump. I don't care if you love him. I don't care if you hate him. The numbers he put up and where this country was. I don't care at the sound of his name, you want to spit on the floor. I really don't. You just go back and show me the nation in the fall of 19 and what the White House media was spending time on and run around chasing him on. And you look at where we are today, because we're about to head into an inferno. Because, Boris, we have an asset deflation, runaway inflation, asset deflation, runaway price inflation, and now looks like a major contraction because of just the economy on business contraction. Boris Ephsteyn, you ever seen anything like this?
No, absolutely not. It is incredibly ugly, and it's only going to get uglier. And also, Steve, if you look at some of the previous difficult times in this country's history, there have been leaders, who were there to lead, who did their best outside of, frankly, 2008, when there was no able leadership, and it showed, right? Because we've never truly recovered from that disaster. And that's when the crazy whack job overspending truly started, and trillions of dollars being thrown around. So if you look at the contrast between where we are today with Joe Biden and, the non-existent Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, that guy Ephsteyn, I think, at the NEC, who literally is nowhere to be found, never seen him, and Ron Klain and others, we don't have leadership in the country. Today, Steve, I went. There was a great event here in D.C. We were talking about Bob Rubin and some other, people who served Democratic administration. Paul Volcker, of course, serving Ronald Reagan, and then Donald J. Trump as president. These are behemoths. These are historic figures. These are people who know what's right and what's wrong and what works and what doesn't. And right now, we in this country are in a disastrous economic situation, and what's even more dire is there's no one around to even attempt to think about how to fix it. I mean, look around. We're supposed to the media.
This is why the numbers. This is why the numbers
told us. Yeah. Just the media told us that Joe Biden was going to bring the greatest and the best, and what do we have? What do we have? Ron Klain, who maybe is qualified to be an assistant to the deputy undersecretary of EPA at best.
Pathetic.
Right? We have Janet Yellen, who hasn't had an original thought in her life. We have nothing to move this country forward. We just have failure.
They're going to get Larry Summers back to you. Now, here's what I want to do. I got Bernie on the phone. He's in Georgia upstate. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go through the Senate issue, but I want to play if Memphis could actually play. Let's start the whole thing with Mastriano and all that, wherever it plays, and I'm going to bring Bernie in. First, talk about Mastriano with Boris. Let's go ahead and play it.
Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Primaries last night in Pennsylvania, a critical election battleground state in both the 2022 midterms and the next presidential election, of course, are a reflection of today's radicalized and Trumpified GOP. In the Republican primary for Senate, that race is at this hour too close to call between Trump-backed TV personality Dr. Oz and businessman David McCormick. The candidate who was surging in the final days of the campaign, who we talked about a bit here, Kathy Barnett, is right now trailing in third place there. We'll have more on the state of that contest, but we start with the results of the Republican primary race in the Pennsylvania governor's contest, in which the GOP has now doubled down on its pro-insurrection brand by nominating someone who was at the Capitol on January 6th. Someone who faces a subpoena right now as we speak from the January 6th select committee investigating the insurrection, and someone who could very well end up under scrutiny by DOJ for his role in appointing a fake slate of Trump electors. That man, Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano, he romped to a win in the GOP primary with a helping hand from the twice impeached, disgraced ex-president. who endorsed him. The New York Times describes Mastriano this way, quote, Pennsylvania's leading far-right figure, Times adding, quote, he funded buses to shuttle supporters to the rally on January 6, 2021, that preceded the attack on the Capitol. During his run for governor, he has barred the news media from attending his campaign events and has appeared with proponents of the QAnon conspiracy theory. It is difficult to understate the potential impact of an insurrectionist potentially running one of the country's most important battleground states. NBC News reports this, quote, should Mastriano prevail in the general election, he would be able to appoint a Secretary of State to oversee elections. He has pledged that his choice would, quote, reset the state's voter rolls so everyone would, quote, have to re-register. And Mastriano may be the first election truther to win the nomination in a key state, but he likely will not be the last. As NBC's Von Hilliard reports, the leading GOPers for governor in Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, Arizona, Kari Lake, Michigan, James Craig, and Wisconsin, Rebecca Kleefisch, have either directly called for overturning the 2020 election result in their states or have refused to say that they would have certified it. They'd each be tasked with certifying the 2024 election, a key battleground state primary revealing a Republican Party that has turned its back on our democracy is where we start.
I think it's going to be quite damning and quite damaging to Trump. I think that it's going to be far more cogent and coherent than most people think, because we've seen congressional investigations in the past get in the way of themselves. There's just a million examples. Probably the Mueller report is the best example of that. It was. We don't have to go over all of that again. But I think the January 6th committee is going, when they do their report and they do their hearings, it's going to be quite damaging for the Republican Party and specifically for the Trump administration. That's number one. Number two, if you look what we reported this morning, Republicans are not only sitting pretty at the moment, they're sitting probably prettier politically than they've sat in 12 years. And I'd say right now, the Republican Party, the same Republican Party that we've just talked about, that has not lifted a finger against Trump, is up 8 points in the generic ballot in battleground states. That means that the average unnamed Republican is beating the unnamed Democrat in crucial districts by 8 points. Now, why is that such a big deal? On its face, 8 points is a lot. But when you consider it, the Democrats have a built-in 4-point advantage on the generic ballot. It means that Republicans are not only winning right now in the House, which is the base of the Trump support, but they're winning overwhelmingly. So their theory of the case, let's not talk about Trump. Let's not talk about January 6th. Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about all of these dynamics that are playing out in the economy. It's being proven right. So they're being rewarded for their silence on Trump and on January 6th. And I think that's just important to internalize for people, because that shows that this kind of misbehavior is being.
Okay, I could go on. She actually said that the MAGA wing, that the Trump movement is ascendant. That came across Nicole Wallace's lips. I'm going to think I hold that and play it tomorrow. It's such a good thing. But Bernie, I want to get you in. They went on for 20 minutes about Doug Mastriano. And Bernie, we had Colonel Mastriano on the day before his historic blowout primary win with you and Rudy, and you were the first two guys to have his back. I know you're very close to him personally. They're all in. They can't beat Doug. Doug Mastriano gave a victory speech last night that was so moving about God and what God meant in his life and bringing freedom to the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I thought it was incredibly moving. Of course, CNN cut away from it right away. MSNBC cut away from it. You know him better than anybody. Talk to me about this big win for Mastriano last night.
Listen, Mastriano is a colonel in the U.S. military, was a colonel in the U.S. military, is a patriot of patriots. He is somebody that believes in the U.S. Constitution. He believes in this country. He believes in the freedoms that we're supposed to have that continually have been taken away from us over the last few years. And he's somebody that's going to fight like hell to bring it back, especially for those in Pennsylvania. You know, Steve, I was with him at Gettysburg when he oversaw that hearing on election integrity. when the president asked about those senators coming to the White House, did they want to come and visit and see him? We got on a bus that night from Gettysburg. It was the night before Thanksgiving in 2020, went to the Oval Office, and he spent probably 2 hours there with the president talking about what we were finding in Pennsylvania, what was being found around the rest of the country in the swing states like Georgia and Arizona and Michigan and Wisconsin. You know, and it's funny now to look back, every single thing that we were talking about that was problematic, that we were finding, that we were being told by witnesses, by what we were seeing in depositions, in affidavits, everything is coming to fruition now. Naturally, we didn't have enough time to do a conclusive investigation up until January 6th. But over the last 18 months, we have found a number of the things that we were looking at have come to fruition. And I think this is something that Mastriano knows and knows well. And he's going to make sure that in Pennsylvania, there is election integrity and people have a right to vote. People have a right to fair elections. And I think that's what he's going to fight for.
Bernie, hang on. I want to go to Boris. Boris, Bernie was there at the 25th at the very railhead of this. You were too. But you see what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, hey, and people understand inflation, the economy, they're going to be hurting for jobs in Pennsylvania. This whole thing's crabbing sideways. It's all the Democrats' fault, but they're going to go back to January 6th. They're going to go back to the committee. Now they're talking, the committee's going to be Jake Sherman sitting right there. When he talks about a generic, and this is about us hating democracy, a generic poll, we're +8. When he says Democrats
Right.
+4, we're up 12. We're up 12. Take it to Boris. They're in a panic mode now. It's all got to be. He's insurrectionist wing of the
Well, first
Republican
of all,
Party. He's a. Go ahead.
Let's talk about that cold open. You know, Nicole Walsh, twice impeached. First of all, Nicole, you worked for George W. Bush, okay? So let's just cut it and all this nonsense. And by the way, you used to be nice. I don't know what happened to Nicole Walsh. I mean, maybe MSNBC is such a bad place to work. Nicole used to be nice enough to talk to, and now it's just all anger all the time. And I know that everybody there wants Rachel Maddow's job, but do you really have to be so angry and so upset? And by the way, so obsessed with Donald J. Trump, the 45th, 46th, and 47th president of the United States. Here's, it was interesting. I actually had to watch, subjected myself to watching CNN last night as the returns were coming in, because as President Trump said on Truth Today, Fox had it wrong. Fox showed 99% in. Well, it was like 70% in. It was a very bad mistake by Fox News and some others. So I was watching CNN, and late night, they had some Charlie Dent doesn't know anything. It's past 2010. Alice Stewart still thinks it's like 2002. But Mark Preston on CNN, he's their political guy, and he actually, maybe it was because it was late, it was like 1:30, he said, yeah, there is no more Republican Party. It's just MAGA. That's what it is. MAGA has overtaken the party. Be like, oh my God, what are you saying? Oh no, Don Lemon's losing his mind. But that's the truth. That's what it is. And CNN, the people who at least choose or by accident happen to be honest, they admit it. MSNBC is admitting it. MAGA is ascendant, and these numbers are historically bad. And guess what? They're lining up with these historical disasters. And I just saw, and this is actually so ludicrous that I cannot believe I'm going to talk about it. Blinken is in Ukraine, and he's sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine for food assistance, while Joe Biden today authorized the use of the Defense Production Act for baby formula in America. Are you kidding me? Do the Democrats just they cannot be this stupid, Steve. They could not be this divorced from reality. I mean, at some point, you've got to think that this is all orchestrated, and they just absolutely hate America, and maybe they all want to move to Ukraine or whatever it may be. But the absolute lack of understanding and self-perspective of, okay, we've got a baby formula shortage here. Moms are buying half gallons of milk instead of gallons of milk, as you said, Steve. And we're sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine to help their food situation. What about the food situation in Camden? What about the food situation in Philadelphia? What about the food situation in Atlanta, in D.C., and all over this country? Why are we not handling that? The dereliction of duty is so disgusting. It is criminal. Blinken, you lifelong staffer loser who poses as our Secretary of State, working for the completely detached, fake president. We've got Joe Biden, doesn't know what day it is or where he is, embarrassing himself at every single step. The dereliction of duty is criminal.
Just hang on for 1 second. We're going to take a short break. We got Bernie on the phone from Georgia. We're going to a couple of things we're going to get into. We're going to have to really chop some wood. I want to ask Bernie when we get back about Doug Mastriano and how he's going to run his race. Then Boris, you're going to update us on the Senate race, which is still looks like it's not going to be resolved anytime shortly. Then we're going to talk about Georgia. Georgia, it's going to be game day next Tuesday. The stakes couldn't get any bigger. You know the stakes are big if Bernie Kerik's been deployed. So we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return, and we're at Battleground. We're getting down into the details of how it happened last night in Pennsylvania, where Doug Mastriano goes from here. What's the story of the Senate race between McCormick and Dr. Oz? And then what's going to happen in Georgia next week, the big game, all the chips moving in the middle of the table. Short commercial break. We'll be back in Battleground with Bernie and Boris and Bannon next.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We got a lot to get through and not a lot of time. We really want to thank Mike Lindell, all the folks over Lindell TV. Mike gave us another special. The slippers normally, go to mypillow.com, promo code War Room. The slippers normally $139.98 are now on sale special on War Room's or Square, what's called $49.98. These are the best slippers ever made. Once you wear them, you'll be wearing them around the house, out in the garden, everywhere. They're amazing. And a huge selection. So go there right now. Check it out. Normally $139, roughly, now $49. Boom. You got to check it out. MyPillow.com, promo code WARROOM. Bernie, I know we're going to get you for a few more minutes. I got to ask you. MSNBC all night long, CNN, is that this is the guy, Shapiro put money in this race. Shapiro did this. Shapiro did that. He wanted Doug Mastriano. Tell me, what kind of campaign is Mastriano going to run?
I think the campaign is to the people, Steve. Look, the people of Pennsylvania and the country, for that matter, they got to know what happened in the 2020 election. They got to make sure that they believe that in 2022, 2024, it's not going to happen again. I think he's going to focus on internal security. He's got some heavy-duty cities in Pennsylvania that is high on crime, high on the murder rate. He's going to attack the borders. He's going to attack the economy. He's going to it's going to be an attack on Biden and the administration and take the campaign to the people.
Okay, Boris, I want to go. By the way, I think Mastriano is going to do that. He's a stand-up guy. This is going to be a heavyweight title fight. Josh Shapiro is as good as they got, so this is going to be a big one. I actually think this is going to be bigger than Perdue and Stacey Abrams down in Georgia. Boris, real quickly, where do we stand? I mean, how could we have 2 years afterwards, and you got 22,000 ballots that didn't get scanned, mail-in ballots didn't get scanned right in Lancaster? Where do we stand with this? Both campaigns are claiming victory. McCormick saying, hey, a lot of these were, and which is logical, a lot of these were mailed in before Trump gave the endorsement. Oz said, I've got this. I'm up, 2,500 or 1,900 votes, and it's going to get better. Where do we stand with the details?
Steve, first I want to say something about Doug Mastriano, and I want to echo everything that Bernie Kerik, who was a great friend and a great American hero, said about Doug Mastriano. Here's what I also want to say politically. This notion that, Doug Mastriano is so crazy, he could never win the general, is absolute nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. First of all, the guy just walked through a primary that had heavy hitters in it. Lou Barletta, Jake Corman, White, McSwain. I mean, this was a heavy-duty primary, and Mastriano
heavy.
Cut through it. Okay,
heavy.
He was at 28 before President Trump's endorsement, ended up at 45. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, the enthusiasm that's going to be with the Republican Party is unlike anything, and that enthusiasm is 1,000% MAGA. Okay, and number three, This is the same stupid argument. Oh, can't be elected that they said about President Trump in 2016. And look at the history. Look at people like Jesse Ventura in Minnesota, Schwarzenegger in California. You get unusual candidates who win gubernatorial races all the time across the country. And Doug Mastriano is hitting on the one issue that matters the most right now to Republican MAGA voters, and that is to get to the bottom of the big steal through November 2020. So any notion that Josh Shapiro is celebrating and all that is just usual MSNBC BS spin. Josh Shapiro should be nervous. He should be very nervous because Doug Mastriano could raise a ton of money. He get the enthusiasm behind him. And if you look at the numbers say that MAGA is so much more energized than the Democrats. So right now, I'd say that, whatever the polling may be, they're going to show you some numbers showing, Shapiro by 15. Mastriano should be favored to win this race because it's going to be a MAGA year. Mastriano brings heat, and MAGA is energized. So combination of that, is completely dispels what they're saying about him. Now, on the Oz side.
You heard this with Jake Sherman. Let's go to Oz and McCormick.
Yeah, and you can't separate. They're trying to tell you, the Republicans are so enthusiastic, MAGA's so hot, and MAGA's going to crush from the House, and then in the same sense, like, wait, but Mastriano has no shot. Yeah, the election's going to be the same day, people. Okay, the election's going to be the same day. The same people who are going to win 100, who are going to vote for the 100-seat win for Republicans, will be voting in the governor's race. So, let's be realistic here and see just how strong Mastriano is going to come in. On the Senate side, the delta right now is about 1,800 votes. Not that many votes left to count, about 1-2%. So Oz continuing to hold on to a lead. Now, there's definitely going to be a recount. That's a definite at this point. And the issue in Lancaster is that they completely bungled the mail-in ballots. And is anyone shocked that mail-in balloting fails once again? It's only what we've been screaming from the rooftops. It's only what everybody, including Jimmy Carter, has been saying for decades, that mail-in balloting is fraught with fraud and mistakes. And it's exactly what we've been talking about, and that's why the 2020 election, that's how it was stolen, through mail-in balloting, through flooding the ballots and gutting the checks. We're not machine guys. Sure, we'll listen to it, but the big steal happened in the old school way, all through mail-in balloting in Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Georgia, so how does this, very much Pennsylvania.
How do we get through the first thing to actually find out what happened on this election, regardless of what the count is? Is it 2 days? Is it 4 days? This Lancaster thing, you keep getting double talk out of there. We don't know how much percentage is on. This shows Shapiro and Wolf administration is a disaster and a disgrace to the folks in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a state second only to my own Virginia, right? You got Gettysburg, you got Valley Forge, you got with the Constitutional Declaration of Independence. Come on, hallowed ground, the entire state. This has happened. Do you have any timeline of when we get through the first count that then go do the recount?
I would expect that within 48 hours, we should have an original result, on the original count, and then you go to do a recount. If it takes any longer than that, this election could have no credibility whatsoever. And I say this as somebody who, because of President Trump's endorsement, and also, there's been a lot of this talk about, hey, what's happening with Oz, et cetera, and Kathy Barnett. I think the results here are obvious, right? It's either Oz or McCormick, and obviously, based on everything the president said and his position on this, Oz is the candidate that I prefer wins this race because it's important for us to continue
but he's saying Oz should declare victory right now. What do you think about that?
I agree with that, no doubt about it. Go out there and say you won the race. That's it. Don't let him continue voting, because let's be honest, who's more plugged into the establishment of Pennsylvania and buddy with all the people who work for Shapiro and work for both sides? It's McCormick. So if Pennsylvania's going to count until one wins,
but they're not going. If he declares he's won, they're going to continue to count. Hang over a second. I'm going to come back with that with more questions. Hang on a second. Let's go to Bernie. Bernie, you don't send Bernie Kerik down to a place unless it's important. So tell us, why are you in Georgia, and how big is next Tuesday for the MAGA movement, President Trump, and setting things right down in the cesspool that, and the good folks in Georgia got to live under this Republican apparatus down there. It's a unique combination of corruption and incompetence. Bernie Kerik.
Well, what has to happen, Steve, is the mayor's endorsements have to really count this time, and they have to work, because Kemp cannot stay the governor. He blew the 2020 election. He allowed the certification of a vote that he knew was wrong. His Secretary of State knew it was wrong. He knew, in fact, Steve, the Secretary of State of Georgia, on November 7th, got a 27-page memo from his own auditor telling the election was a farce. And then he actually went on 60 Minutes and said it was the best election ever in the history of Georgia. Well, and it was a lie. He knew it was a lie. Kemp knew it was a lie. Kemp can't stand as governor. Perdue's got to win. Herschel Walker's going to win. Burt Jones, Vernon Jones, and Jody Heiss. All of them have to place in this primary. I'm down here helping Vernon Jones and even the others, pushing for the entire MAGA team to take it next Tuesday.
Bernie, let me ask you right now. I mean, the best case, look, when people kind of got engaged in this, I mean, Boris and I were sitting there going, hey, we got to focus on Georgia, guys. When people finally got focused, Kemp was 27. I mean, Perdue was 27 points down. Now I realize they're push polls, but he's way down. That thing's closed dramatically. As you see it right now, what has to happen between now and Tuesday to keep Kemp under 50% in the first round and then take it to a runoff?
You know what? The people have to come out for Perdue. Look, Perdue was behind. He's coming up quick. He's bouncing back quick. I think the president's endorsement helped him. But I think the people are now realizing this is it. Next Tuesday, if Perdue doesn't win, doesn't place in a runoff, you know what? Kemp is going to be the standing governor until Stacey Abrams beats him. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
The bottom line is Perdue has to win. He's got to come forward.
Bernie, how do people follow you on social media? Because you're putting hot stuff up all the time, and people are the whole political universe is now focused on Georgia. So how do people follow you?
Bernard Kerik on Twitter, Getter, Truth, and the other platforms.
Bernie Kerik, go with God. You're a fighter and a patriot. And by the way, thanks for all your help. You, as always, you and Broody, always in the breach. The heroes are always there. You, the first guys to step in. Mastriano was at 1% with no money and no chance of raising any money. I mean, this was a concept, and you had heavy guys. McSwain's the U.S. attorney, a heavy pair of hands. Lou Barletta, first congressman to come out and endorse Trump, just had run for the Senate, lost, but it's a heavy pair of hands. You got the guy White, who's this kind of blue collar millionaire, not MAGA, but MAGA adjacent. You had a couple of the three in there too. You had this is a tough field. Mastriano was at 1%. 1%. You had Jay Corman, the president pro tem of the Senate. You had Mastriano 1%. You guys saw something in Colonel Mastriano that others did not see, and it's your heroism. That's what I say. If you want to check guys out, call Bernie and Rudy. If they know him, boom. If they say, hey, the guy checks out, that's the platinum standard. So Bernie, thank you so much. And man, what a job you and Rudy did yesterday. That was a huge win by Mastriano. Boris, we just lost Bernie. He just jumped. Boris, I want to make sure President Trump, as hard as Mastriano ran and as great a job as he did, it with no money, right? He was at about 28, which is interesting. It's where Kathy Barnett probably is going to end up at 25, let's say, maybe 26. Also with no money, they had kind of that joint venture. The Trump endorsement in 12 hours, I mean, he 45. That's what, 17 points?
Yeah.
Now, I realize that people are making their decisions last and you can't capture them all. But, hey, note to the mainstream media, Trump turbocharges campaigns like no one in the history of American politics.
Ever.
You've been doing this a long time. Never. And particularly a guy, that they claim, in their narrative, he lost the White House. So I say, well, if he lost the White House and he didn't get the votes, the guy's on fire. I mean, the guy last I've seen, it's a smart guy. This is MAGA. And that's why next week, I wanted to give you your thoughts on that. Next Tuesday is all the devils are there. This has got the Bush apparatus and Karl Rove's hands all over it. You got Chris Christie sitting down there. I saw the pictures of 50 people showing up in the middle of the day in Atlanta on a lunch break. 50. You got Chris Christie. You got Doug Ducey, right? You've got the Ricketts, right, are super anti-Trump and want to launch Pete Ricketts as a national figure, and you bring. Let's be blunt. The traitor. All the trouble started with Pence not doing his duty. You got Pence on it. You've got basically the Koch, Larry Fink, Raytheon wing of that kind of stub of the old Republican Party. And man, oh man, they're coming hard next Tuesday. They think they're going to get Trump served. So give us your assessment.
You're right, Steve. I mean, that's what's left of the Republican Party, right? And that's what it has been absolutely demolished by the MAGA movement. President Trump came in on that providential win in 2016 and took over not just the party apparatus and the RNC and etc. The movement is all MAGA. The base is all MAGA. And that's why you've got all these people, Chris Christie's down in Atlanta, probably hot down there, for Christie. You got Ricketts and Pence, and they're coming down. They're all, and what are they going to do? Who are they going to excite? Two people? Again, if you look at the numbers and if you look at the excitement behind President Trump, behind his picks, it is something we have never seen before in the history of this country. Look at Ted Budd. Without President Trump's endorsement, Ted Budd gets cleaned by McCrory. Okay, absolutely annihilated. And let's be honest, without President Trump, Oz is at like 4%. Okay, he's another Carlos Sands. He's another Jeff Bartos without President Trump. President Trump put Oz in the position he is. Without President Trump, Herbster in Nebraska loses by 26. Without President Trump, J.D. Vance was at 6 or 7, ended up at 32 in 2 weeks after the endorsement. And this isn't just us, talking about, this is such a strength of a personality. No, President Trump represents a movement, and every number shows it. All the polls show it, and the results show it. And what you're seeing right now is such a stark contrast. Look at Joe Biden. His guy in Oregon yesterday, Oregon 5 got wiped out. Joe Biden is an anvil. And the heaviest anvil in history around the neck of the Democrats. He gave one endorsement. Trump's given 90 and like he's 88 and 2 or something like that. Right.
Timothy gave one, a guy got smoked. Real quickly here, I've got a special guest that was able to join us after a lot of prodding by your host. That would be Mike Lindell. Mike, our guy Doug Mastriano's up there getting blown up by MSNBC. Nicole Wallace, all of them saying, "Hey, he's insurrection. He's bringing up 6 January, and this is going to be a killer." Although the generic ballot says we're up 12. Put it in perspective. Where do you think we stand with this entire thing to get to the bottom of 3 November, and how big a deal is it going to be in the run up? Whether the state is Georgia, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Arizona. What's your thoughts, sir? Okay, Memphis got my Boris. I guess we still got you.
There you go.
Not ready to go.
Hello.
Okay,
I'm ready.
No, that's. Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing.
Did you
great.
hear my question?
Getting ready for my big day in Alabama tomorrow, Steve.
Talk to us about that.
Well, we're doing. I'm spending the whole day there. We're doing 2 speeches on election crimes, and we're doing another preliminary injunction there in Alabama. We're skipped over. South Dakota will actually be next week, the way it looks like. But here we are in Alabama, of which their Secretary of State says there's no crime in Alabama with the machines. Well, there is, Steve, and it's to the tune of about 180,000 votes from Donald Trump to Biden. And,
okay, but hang on. How'd you get standing? The guy Merritt, who I think had a few issues with ladies, not a fan of Mike Lindell. If you didn't get Secretary of State, who do you get? How do you have standing? You got Carrie Lake and Fincham in Arizona. You got all-stars I can't mention in South Dakota. Who you got in Alabama?
Well, in Alabama, that one is going to be a surprise tomorrow morning. We can announce it on your show if you want tomorrow morning. They're still actually
Done.
at this hour. They're actually, Steve. There are about 6 different ones that want to get on, and after what we did and what happened in Arizona, it seems like everybody wants to get on. That's running, you know what I mean, and that's fighting for election crime. So that'll be announced tomorrow morning. And I also want to tell you this. Interesting enough, what timing? 2 days ago, ES&S machines, they were doing their testing in Alabama. We have tapes of 2 different counties where they went in, and this is open to the public. They went in with fake ballots, Steve, ran off on copy machines, and guess what? The ES&S machines took them like they were an official ballot. So we not only have the recordings of 2 counties, but we've also got a lot of other tapes that were made with the reaction of the ES&S employees and very high officials in Alabama.
Okay, hang on, because we're going to go to a hard stop. Your show's about to start. Everybody here on Lindell TV, you got Mike Lindell. He's going to come in hot. So I just want to get technically, because we'll have you on tomorrow. What time are you going to file? This is another one. Lindell's going to all 50 states. He's not backing off an inch. This is Lindell's crusade against the machines. And Boris and I keep saying we're not machine guys, but hey, if you're driving, we're riding shotgun. Tomorrow, what time is going to be in Alabama? You're going to file. You're going to file when?
We're going to file. I believe it's tomorrow morning. It'll be filed. We'll file it as I come on your show. We're going to try. I'll find out from the lawyers.
10 o'clock.
But it is tomorrow morning.
Okay, so everybody on Lindell's TV, stick around. The greatest, Mike Lindell, the fighter. I mean, look, guys like Lindell, you knock them down, they're going to get back up. It's like Doug Mastriano. I just want to remind people, Mastriano was at 1% when he started with no money. He never really raised any money, no money. I think he raised a couple of $1 million, mainly from the War Room Posse. So a historic win. Guys like Lindell, people like Colonel Mastriano, they have character. They have courage, right? And they're not going to back down. We're not going to back down. The mainstream media can take this all they want. We're not going to back down. Boris, real quickly, give me your coordinates for a punch.
Now, BorisCP.com is the website. It's hot. BorisCP.com. Sign up right now. Hot on Getter at BorisCP. Twitter at Boris. Social Boris Instagram. Stay strong. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm going to be up on Getter all night. See you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.